Hello, I'm Ralph, and in today's edition of Just an Opinion, I'm going to rank the Nightmare on Elm Street series. What do you think about that? Good. The slasher genre offered a plethora of silent and soft-spoken killers. Freddy Krueger was a contrast to this convention. His personality was a dichotomy of horror and humor. But there was a new dimension to him. He only existed in your dreams. And if he killed you in your sleep, you died for real. Freddy slashed his way in and out of your dreams for 7 films, a remake, a television series, and an epic confrontation with another horror icon. I do highly recommend the Blu-ray box set as it is loaded with special features and commentaries. I also highly suggest the documentary Never Sleep Again. It covers the entire franchise with immense detail. This intricate approach was actually very influential on future film documentaries, as it provided the interviews, special features, and all the goodies that fans were just craving for. Now, this review does contain some violent scenes and some spoilers, so consider yourself warned. And finally, thank you to my sister Robin for buying me this awesome sweater. You may not like the sweater, but this is just an opinion. Number 9 is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. Prior to this release, the tone of the franchise was lightening a bit as Freddy was becoming a more prominent pop culture figure. The Dream Child attempted to shift the series a little bit back towards dark and scary, but in the end it was just a disorganized mess with more style over substance. The film felt very rushed and quickly put together, just trying to keep the momentum of the franchise alive. The plot involves Freddy trying to enter into the dreams of an unborn child in order to be reborn.
What's he doing to my baby?
Please, young lady, try to keep calm. Your baby is perfectly healthy. A little large for so early on, but as normal as I've ever seen.
He's taking their souls, their spirits, and making the baby like him.
Visually, it was pleasing at some points. I really do applaud some of the dream sequences.
This boy feels the need for speed.
But without a compelling story or at least some developed characters, in the end it was really just special effects. I was good with the film having Alice as the protagonist again, but I just wish that they could have given her something better to work with. Number 8 is Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. With a title like this, you would expect a grand finale to the franchise. Now, it does start with promise. The focus is a mysterious teenager trying to leave the town of Springwood and ultimately from Freddy's grasp.
He's going to make you help him, because you're the last.
It's not fair! I was almost out!
But he was just a pawn in Freddy's grand scheme. From this point, the movie does become a bit convoluted. While still trying to move forward as a linear story, the film does cram a lot of attempts at Freddy's backstory and his evil origins. The tone is also a bit inconsistent, especially with all of Freddy's gags. Some are meant to be scary, some are quite cartoonish, and some border on product placement.
Get out of here now, Tracy! Now!
Hey, you forgot the power glove! Ow!
What a shameless attempt to sell more merchandise. Ultimately, adding Freddy's daughter into the mix did not make the impact that the filmmakers imagined. Despite the dynamite involved, the final nightmare did not end the franchise with a bang that we had all hoped for.
Freddy's dead.
Number 7 is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. The first sequel went in a bold direction, with Freddy possessing and utilizing a teenager to kill in the real world versus the dream world. I can't honestly say that I liked this decision though. It was just bizarre to see Freddy massacring a group of teenagers versus killing them one by one in the dream world. It kinda took away from how unique the first film was. But I was a big fan of the characters, especially Jesse and Grady.
Listen to time this guy's a basket case.
Shut up, Grady!
Wanna shut up?
fine. I'll shut up. No problem. See you around, buddy.
This film has mixed reviews, especially with the subtext that Jesse was a repressed homosexual. Personally, I think it adds an interesting layer of complexity to his character and the relationship he had with Freddy. And of course, who could forget that dance scene? Number 6 is A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 2010 remake. Okay, so in order to enjoy this film, you just need to let go of the fact that somebody else is playing Freddy Krueger. Don't expect the same type of performance. Just don't. While serving as a remake to the original, it does actually take a few liberties with the plot, but I kind of liked it. The story felt a little bit more grounded, with the idea that Freddy swore revenge on a specific group of children. I loved how the characters in the film actually researched this, and even those who moved away could not escape his clutches. The dream sequences were surreal. They were both elaborate, but also very sudden and in your face when the characters could no longer stay awake. The supporting characters, they were a little bland, but luckily the main characters picked up the pace. Nancy was definitely the key to Freddy's revenge plot, but I liked the new and arguably central character of Quentin. They were really a great balance to each other.
Quentin? Nancy, you got to him. Jesse's dead. He died in his sleep.
I saw him. I fell asleep. I saw Freddy.
All right, I'm coming over.
Okay.
Number 5 is Freddy vs. Jason. I am very torn on this film. The setup, I have to say, was actually kind of brilliant. Freddy had grown weak, given that people no longer believed he existed. So he enlisted and manipulated Jason to do the killing for him. And the motive was to regain his powers.
Not strong enough yet. Well, I will be soon enough. Until then, I'll let Jason have some fun.
Just the idea of this movie is a fanboy's dream come true. But I really wasn't sure of what to expect when the two adversaries did finally come to blows. What we got was an absurd and very long fight scene riddled with silly special effects and choreography that belonged in a Jackie Chan movie. The supporting characters didn't really add much to the film either, as they were annoying and chewed the scenery as often as they could.
Wait a minute. Freddy died by fire, Jason by water. How can we use that?
Get real. You're not even scary.
You're not even scary.
And let's talk about the butter knives. What is with the butter knives?
I remember for years that this film was in development hell, and on the internet I had read a couple excerpts of some potential scripts. Some sounded pretty interesting, some not so much. So I was really happy to see that this film was finally made, but in the end I still don't think it really even tapped the potential that it had.
Surprise!
Now I want to take a pause from the list to discuss Freddy's Nightmares. This was a pretty great idea to build an anthology series around Freddy and featuring him on television. The show was syndicated, so for my local area, I remember it being on Saturday nights along with the show Boys Will Be Boys. Now that show should be released on DVD, but that's a topic for another time. Freddy appeared in every single episode, offering witty and sardonic remarks about the material.
It's time for our boy to face the music with Rapmaster. Ready?
This provided a non-canon avenue for more creative usage of his character. The episodes, though, they were a mixed bag. Interestingly, we actually got a few episodes that added to the narrative of Freddy.
Come on! I'd rather burn up and fade away! I'll be back! I'm free! Free!
Other episodes tackled the idea of Freddy in some fashion, but most episodes were their own tales, and these were very hit and miss. I liked how most episodes focused on one character for the first half, but then the second half shifted the focus onto a supporting character. It's a shame that there really hasn't been a formal release of this show on DVD yet. It did have its moments, but I would also give the advice of treating it like cookie dough. Enjoy it in small increments or you're going to get a stomachache. Okay, back to the list. Number 4 is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. At the time of this release, Freddy was extremely mainstream. So the film followed suit as there was a bit more comedy.
Come up to the club, honey.
And Freddy was clearly the star. This film feels very MTV influenced and is arguably the most fun film of the franchise. I really wish that they could have done more with the character of Rick. He just oozed charisma, and who doesn't love a workout montage?
Okay, what is it tonight?
If anything, I would say that this film cut itself short a little bit on the character development. The transition from main protagonist from Kristen to Alice felt a little bit rushed and confusing.
Now no one sleeps! Souls of my children!
You'll need my power!
It somewhat derailed the momentum of the previous installment. While enjoyable, the movie did lay it on pretty thick with the dream powers, especially with the ability to pass it from one person to another. Number 3 is New Nightmare. Wes Craven returned to his franchise and created a postmodern masterpiece. Fans saw several characters from the first installment, and even Wes himself returned to play fictional versions of themselves. It was almost surreal to see a friendship between Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp in comparison to the characters that they played. They made Freddy Krueger into a more mythology-type character who was trapped inside of a story but now had found his way into the real world. It was absolutely fascinating to see characters confronted with real-life fear that was based on a fiction that they participated in.
You're having nightmares about Freddy? As in me?
No, it isn't you. He's scarier. He's...
Darker. More evil?
Yeah. How did you know?
Call it a guess.
This movie is layered with complexity and genius. The setting shifts between reality and a dark fairy tale as opposed to dream sequences. But much like the films prior, the audience is visually manipulated as the scene goes from normal to frightening in a matter of seconds.
Miss me?
This entry was a very fitting ending to the story of Freddy Krueger until he came back to fight Jason. Number 2 is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. This installment was really scary. It took everything we loved from the previous entries and really upped the ante. For starters, the dream sequences are terrifying, but also really creative.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch.
The film also offers a very unique cast of new characters who mesh well with the returning Nancy. She really tied the story together as she helped these kids understand who Freddy Krueger is.
His name is Freddy Krueger. He was a child murderer before he died. And after he died, well, he became something worse. You are the last of the Elm Street children.
Nancy also helped each person realize that they had their own unique dream power of their own that they could fight Freddy with. And harnessing this power thus together made them the Dream Warriors. Okay, I see what's going on here. You thought you could fool me, didn't you? Finally, this film helped Freddy cross over into mainstream. One big contributor of that was the Dawkins song. They even made a music video, which played non-stop on MTV featuring clips from the flick. Number 1 is the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven innovated the slasher genre at the time of this release. This movie is much more intelligent than it gets credit for. The terror was more cerebral, since you can't hide from a killer in your dreams. For characters, Craven cast a perfect set of teenagers, all connected to this nightmare killer.
Oh, he scraped his fingernails along things. Actually, they were more like finger knives or something he'd made himself. But they made a horrible sound.
Nancy, you dreamed about the same creep I did.
Victims of these films were typically teenagers. A Nightmare on Elm Street added a layer onto this convention, since the teenagers were specifically targeted due to the actions of their parents.
But he can't get you now. He's dead, honey, because Mommy killed him.
The dream sequences were much more gritty in this installment, having less fantasy elements. Slasher films usually provoked people to have nightmares, but if the nightmare itself could kill you, then that just throws the fear factor off the charts. One particular scene scarred my childhood. My sister Cindy and her friends were watching this flick at a sleepover. I happened to walk into the room, probably looking for pizza, and it just happened to be during Glenn's death scene. Needless to say, after that, I never wanted to go to sleep or go near my bed ever again. A Nightmare on Elm Street was so pivotal in the evolution of horror films. The terror was not only bound to what was in front of you, but now it was in your dreams. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back soon where I'm going to rank the Halloween franchise. Until then, I bid you all sweet dreams.